Hey, it's Anita, and this is the Anita Posch Show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Anita Posch Show, where it is my pleasure to keep you up to date with topics around Bitcoin on a global stage and also the local impact it has on people like you and me. My guest today is Meron Estefanos. She's a Swedish-based Eritrean human rights activist and journalist who works tirelessly to aid and raise awareness about the plight of Eritrean refugees who have been kidnapped, tortured, raped, and held for ransom in the Sudan and the Sinai. In her efforts to rise up against the dictatorship in Eritrea, she engages researchers in Ethiopia who she paid through Bitcoin recently. We're going to talk about her work and why Bitcoin is a different and much better way to pay people in Eritrea and Africa than the Hawala system or Western Union. As always, you can watch this video on YouTube. You can listen to it in your favorite podcast player. Please subscribe and share it with your friends. If you want to become a sponsor of this show, please drop me a line at hello@anitaposch.com. And now, a short word from one of my sponsors, and then on to the show. Enjoy. Many people worry about the right storage for their Bitcoin. And yes, holding them isn't always easy. Smartphones get lost, hard drives can crash, and online wallets get hacked frequently. The safest way of storing cryptocurrencies long-term is offline in a physical way. That's why Coinfinity developed the Card Wallet, the professional and easy cold storage solution. The Card Wallet supports various security features such as high-quality materials and tamper-proof features which prevent the manipulation of the card and make it a safe place for your beloved coins. Get yourself a Card Wallet now. You will get 20% off if you order at cardwallet.com/Anita. That's cardwallet.com/Anita. Do you want to stay up to date with the things that happen in Bitcoin from my point of view? Then subscribe to Anita's Weekly, my newsletter with articles, videos, quotes, short tips on how to use Bitcoin and all that for free. Subscribe to Anita's Weekly at anita.link/weekly. Hello, Meron. Welcome to the Anita Posch Show. I'm glad you found the time to join me today.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. So, Meron, you have quite an exceptional story. The work you do is so incredibly important. And to be honest, I didn't know about all of that before I started to research for this interview now. You, I think, lived or were born in Eritrea in Africa. And please introduce yourself to our audience. And then I would like to ask you to give an overview about the situation in Eritrea.
Okay. Thank you for having me, Anita. I am Meron Estefanos. I was born and raised until I was 13 in Eritrea. At that time, Eritrea was not an independent country. It was occupied, so Eritreans were fighting for independence. So as a result, a lot of people were fleeing, and my father was an activist that had fled Eritrea and came to Sweden. As a result of that, I later joined him and have been living here for over 30 years. So this is home.
Okay, so you live in Sweden now. And what I've read, Eritrea is a dictatorship, basically. And people have no human rights and things like that. So can you please give us an overview of since when is Eritrea independent? Where is it? How big is it? And what is the living situation?
Okay. Eritrea is located in East Africa. It used to be part of Ethiopia. But it became part of Ethiopia in 1961. So before that, Eritrea was under colony under Italy for over 80 years. Later on, after the Second World War, the British took out the Italians, and then we were occupied by the British until 1951. So 1951, when the British left, they left Eritrea in the hands of the UN to decide the fate of this small country that was on top of Ethiopia, in the northern part of Ethiopia, and with a population of 3.5 million at that time. So they decided to give us a 10-year trial as a federation with Ethiopia, and to see if we can manage by ourselves. At that time, we had our own parliament, of course, but later on, 1961, the king of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie, decided to make Eritrea part of Ethiopia as the 14th region of Ethiopia. And unfortunately, the world did not do anything, even though there was a deal to be made that 1962 Eritreans were going to vote for their independence or not, but before the referendum. So he made it part of Ethiopia, and nobody reacted. The UN didn't do anything. So our fight for independence started the same year, 1961, and so Eritreans fled the country, and so we've been fleeing ever since. So we have a very large diaspora group, because we've been fleeing for many years for different reasons. So 1991, finally, with the people's movement, Eritrea was freed. And so everybody celebrated. The promise was to create, not only an independent Eritrea, but to have a democratic Eritrea. This was a promise. So myself as a child, I was involved from Sweden. My father did everything he did was for Eritrea. So every Eritrean I knew in the diaspora, we sent whatever money we had. We sent books, we sent pens, we sent anything we could get a hold of to the movement. And that's how the movement was won. Those that could went and fought, and those that couldn't contributed with money and materials. And so 1991, when the country was free, the movement leader, the now president, just broke his promise just 5 months after the independence. He said, we don't need a multi-party system. He said, we don't need democracy because Eritrean people have never had democracy in their life. So it would be like dangerous for us to be democratic. That slowly he was going to introduce democracy. And so at that time, because it was just impossible that Eritrea was independent. It was independent in 1991, May 24, actually. This week, we're celebrating 30-year anniversary. But unfortunately, since that year, the first promise was broken, and soon after we were going to vote for referendum, and many religious groups were arrested because they refused to vote because it's against their religious beliefs, and so those people were arrested. This is 1992, 1993, and until today they are in prison. So slowly, it became worse and worse, and by 1998 we were supposed to implement our constitution, but not to implement the constitution. He started a war with a neighboring country, Ethiopia. But one thing I forget to mention about this is, since 1994, just 1 year after officially Eritrea was accepted as a nation by the United Nations, he started a program called National Service, Military Service, where every citizen have to do their military service for a year and a half, to rebuild the country that had been damaged by so many wars and so many occupations before that. So everybody was happy, gladly everybody accepted. But was supposed to be a year and a half became indefinite. So those that went round one was 1994, and they are still serving until today. So being in a military service means, if you are, let's say, it starts from the very early age. So when you are going in high school at the age of 15, 16, so you are in grade 10. And so what they do is they take you grade 11, you don't do it where you live, or in the city where you live with your family, or in a village, wherever you live. So they take you to the military camp, which is in the middle of nowhere. And so they are going to train. Not only do you go to school, your last year of high school, but you are military trained at the same time. So by grade 11, when you graduate, depending on what kind of points that you have. So either you pass or you don't. So if you don't pass, then you are sent off to as a military personnel to different kind of tasks. It could be building roads. It's basically slavery, national slavery, nothing else, because everything in the country. So if you are an educated doctor, medical doctor, so they will assign you at the hospital as part of your military service. So you will be making less than 40 euros a month. At the same time, you're just a slave until the government says um, you are free to go, which is 50. So imagine, so if you are a woman, you went to the military at the age of 15, and so the only way you can be discharged legally is when you are 50. So a lot of women, a lot of young girls, not to go to the military, they often have kids at a very young age to avoid being sent to a military. So this creates many fatherless children in the country. Um, and of like as a country that had press freedom only for 4 years, and it just took like 4 years, and later on 2000, so Eritrea officially in 2001 Eritrea became dictatorship because they arrested um, all the journalists, the private media journalists, and also the ministers that called out for implementation of the constitution, to give power to the people, to have election, because we've never had election since the country was created. So in September 18, 2001, just 1 week after the September 11 tragedy in New York, in US happened. So what they did is the whole world was busy. So our president actually took the opportunity to arrest all the journalists and the ministers. And ever since, so Eritrea became officially a dictatorship. And since then, so we became the fastest emptying country and one of the most refugee producing countries after Syrians, even though by population, as I said, we are just 4 million, 4.5 maybe. But I would dare to say that close to half of our population has fled in the last 20 years because of the dictatorship, and also because of the military service, because you have no right to say anything. You have no right to think. People are getting assassinated for thinking to flee, even though they were not caught. But people can accuse you. You can get accused. If I say I'm hungry, it can be interpreted in a wrong way, and they can accuse me of saying, so you're trying to say there is starvation going on in the country. So it's a country where nobody trusts anybody. Everybody is afraid of the government, and there are all kinds of spies. Even your family member can be a spy just to survive. At the same time, internet connection is only like 1.3 percent of the population have access to internet, and this is done purposely by the government, and it's very slow. To open an email would just last you like 15 minutes. So people are deprived of information, and so that's why we started about 15 years ago with radio broadcasting into the country via satellite. And we started with shortwave, actually, because people have access to radio everywhere you go, and they just need a battery. They don't even need electricity. So in our case, it worked, and a few years later, of course, so a lot of other radios came, and until today, the radio where I was working is one of the leading radio stations with a reach of 500,000 people inside the country.
Mm-hmm. Wow, what a story! And why do you think the world has forgotten Eritrea, the people of Eritrea? Is it because it's such a small country and it doesn't have natural resources and stuff like that? Why is nobody talking about that?
Exactly, it's a small country with a small population, and we are a poor country. We don't have that much resources like others, so we're not important for any country to fight for us or to even stand for the people of Eritrea. Of course, you will have condemnations from the European Union and the US State Department all the time, but at the same time, there's no action. So it's just an empty resolution to make the people of Eritrea, but at the same time, they're funding the dictatorship as well.
Mm-hmm. So now, this situation is very, very bad, but it gets worse. It gets even worse now. So tell us about the story, or what you basically are doing now. Who are you helping? And so many refugees are searching for a place to have a peaceful life, and on that way, they are getting kidnapped and yeah, worse things. Please tell us a little bit about that.
Well, as I said, so since 2005-6, I've been doing the radio, and then so in 2008, so I just start focusing on refugee issues because that gave me more peace of mind. Because when I was as an activist, political activist, trying to change things in Eritrea, I felt like I was too far away from Sweden. There was nothing more I can do rather than just talking in a radio. But with refugees, it gives you peace of mind because these refugees, when they call you, it could be, regarding any emergency that they have. And for them, it's a matter of life and death. But for me, it's just one phone call, and that one phone call could save hundreds of lives. So slowly people start saving my number and started calling me from all over the world, and the refugees that are drowning in the Mediterranean Sea, 600-700 people, 800 people at a time, and they would just call you and tell you, you don't know these people, and they would just say, we have no hope, and you are the only person, like after God, our life is in your hand, and they give you a responsibility that you don't really want. And so they're desperate. I don't have the heart to say, sorry, I don't want that responsibility, just try to calm them down. But when a person calls you from the Mediterranean Sea when they are in distress, it's very difficult because you feel that we try to send them help, but if they don't get help, then it's your fault because they have given you the responsibility of their lives. And so it started like this, and then slowly refugees start calling me. I heard, someone told me that his brother was kidnapped and he was being asked for a ransom of $20,000, and it seemed like a bit exaggerated. I knew about the kidnapping, but I knew that it used to be up to $4,000, and people did not really make a big deal out of it. They used to pay easily. But so slowly this has jumped to 20,000. From 4,000 it went up to 20,000, which was amazing, and I couldn't believe. So I called the group, and I don't know, I just got really touched by their stories. It was a group of 28 or 29 who were being held together, and they were shackled with chains. There was only one female 18-year-old girl, and she was getting raped, gang raped by so many, and also being tortured, all kind of terrible methods that you can think of. It's the torture methods that they use is very sadistic, and they get off of it, and for them it's fun because when these people are being humiliated, they film them, they make them do things, like they want them to pretend like animals, to go naked, and they force them to rape each other just for the fun of it, to humiliate them. If they know a brother and a sister are traveling together, they can force the brother to rape his own sister. If he says no, they would burn him with all kind of electricity and things. So it's awful. It gives you sleepless nights. The things they tell you, it's just you don't even see it in a horror film. And my life changed after that. I just could not ignore it, and I dedicated my life, the past 10 years of my life, fighting the human traffickers who kidnap these people. But at the beginning it was frustrating because when you went to authorities, our government doesn't really care. So the reason these people call me is because our embassy doesn't really care. Our embassies in Europe or elsewhere, they are here to spy on us, not to assist a citizen. So that's why they call activists like me. So when I wrote to UN and others and anybody that I could think of, I wrote to my government here in Sweden. Anyone, organizations, and everybody was saying, "Oh, it's so sad, but there is nothing we can do." So I was forced into to break the taboo of paying ransoms, because if your choice is just pay or you die, if it was your loved one, of course you would pay, no matter what government tells you they don't. It's just a lie, because they always pay ransoms and they negotiate. They release their citizens when people are in trouble, while they tell you not to do that. So that frustration led into I started paying ransoms, even though I knew it will encourage. But what else can you do? Because I just couldn't let a 2-year-old baby getting tortured and burned for a year straight until that person dies, or you pay 20,000, and at the beginning it was 20,000. Later on, it went up to 60,000 a person. We were talking about Eritrea. It's a country that's like the poorest of the poorest, that doesn't have anything. We flee because of the political situation, but at the same time, we don't have anything. But for these kidnappers, they think because we have a large diaspora group that have fled for many years, long time, like me and others. So they specifically start targeting just Eritrean refugees that recently fled, and to get out of Eritrea, you have a shoot to kill policy. You're not supposed to flee, but so 50% will make it out, and then 50%, once you make it, 50% will get kidnapped, because the traffickers are roaming around the border area. Traffickers are corrupting the border guards into luring refugees to them, and so you can hardly stop it, because we're talking about you flee from Eritrea, you're in Sudan, the Sudanese guards are kidnapping you, selling you to the traffickers, and the traffickers are selling you off to Egyptians, who then auction you off like a slave. And so traffickers would line up and buy off however many of Eritreans they want to. And then they will set a price. The later on it became the cheapest price you could pay was 33,000, and the largest was 60,000 a year. I mean, for a person. Because of this, so over 10,000, close to 10,000 Eritreans disappeared or died just in Egypt alone, because their family could not pay ransom. And close to 40 to 50,000 paid and are now alive, scattered all over the world. But we're talking about, so in 5 years' time, we Eritreans paid close to $1 billion just in ransom. And to who, we don't even know to who we paid. They could be terrorist groups, they could be anybody, but even the Western country, they never cared. We tried to get them interested. I was always in touch at the EU Parliament, the European Commission, State Department, but nothing was being done. Of course, they take the information you have, but at the same time, they didn't do anything. So the same method now was copied in Libya after Muammar Gaddafi died. So now Eritreans who try to flee towards Libya to come to Europe since 2012, 2013, they keep getting kidnapped. And the same method that in Egypt, it's being committed in Libya. The only thing that's different is in Egypt, when these refugees were getting kidnapped and when they were getting tortured, families, so they forced families to listen to the torture and to listen while their loved one is getting gang raped. That's how they force you to pay. So in Libya, they became a bit high tech, and so now they call you via video call, and they show you as your loved one is getting tortured and getting raped, and of course, so anybody would just borrow money from whoever you can, and you do that. I myself, my cousin was kidnapped after covering this issue for many years. So later on, she became the victim, and it was just too much for me to listen to my little cousin getting gang raped by 5-6 guys, and I have to be on phone, and they keep calling me when she's tortured and everything. At last, I had to pay $37,000 for her freedom, and which will take me years to pay off the debt that I put myself. And imagine, I live here in the West. Imagine those that are in Eritrea, a poor family that borrowed money, $30,000-$40,000 for generations. They're not going to be able to pay. This is going to affect us for many generations to come. So this is the story that I hear on a daily basis, the phone calls that I get.
But this sounds like that it is like a business. I mean, the tortures, the kidnapping, the selling of people, like on a market, like slaves. I read also one of these things in one of these reports from Human Rights Watch, I think, or something like that. What can be a solution here? I mean, what are you doing now? Are you trying to get so many donations to be able to pay all of that? But as you say, you in a way, it's encouraging the kidnappers to do more, isn't it? I mean, what could be a solution?
Yeah, The last time I paid ransom is 2013, I think. So I haven't paid ransom after that. But families are still paying. As I said, when it's your loved one, if it's your daughter or your son gets getting tortured and raped, and you'll do anything. And the problem, as I said, the reason that we pay is because we have no one else to turn to. Our government doesn't care. The West doesn't really care about black babies getting tortured and kidnapped. I can give you an example. Many times, Europeans have been kidnapped in the Sinai, Egypt, in the same place where Eritreans were getting tortured. Within a day, 24 hours, within maximum 2 weeks, they're out. How did they get them out? So if you can free one person because she's European or American or Israeli, but you cannot free thousands of refugees and babies amongst them and pregnant children, pregnant women. It's just, if it's not about race, it's about nothing. You know, we try to be polite, and here in Europe, you know, we say Black Lives Matter after George Floyd, but to be honest, more Black people are killed in European soil than in American soil, because people crossing to Europe are dying on a daily basis, and nobody cares because these are Black babies that are dying, and people are getting used to Africans are so dehumanized everywhere by media and everything that you see. So people don't react when it's about us. And politicians, you know, what they care most and what they fear most is public opinion. So as long as the people don't care, politicians are not going to do anything about it just because Meron is screaming or.
Yeah, I think it's also because it's like us and them, you know, like it's not a case of Europe or like Austria or Sweden or the US. It's Eritrea. It's their stuff. They have to cope with it. Yeah, they should try to force the dictator out. Yeah, but how can you do this? Yeah, if you have no means and no power. Yeah.
Exactly.
So what are you doing now? You said something about research and trying to find those traffickers and stuff like that.
Yeah, so since I start covering refugee-related issues since 2008, you know, you get to hear all kinds of stories, as well, everything that I just said, like the torture, the deaths in the Mediterranean Sea, and everything is caused by the traffickers as well. You know, there is an European policy when these people die, but at the same time, there's also the traffickers that facilitate. You know, instead of sending 100 people in one rubber boat, they put 500 people in that rubber boat just to be greedy and to make money. And of course, so every season, around this season, we always get all kind of phone calls, and at least 5 to 6 boats that drown are always carrying Eritreans. So for us Eritreans, we're so used to around when the summer is about to approach that at least 3,000 Eritreans are going to die just during the summer in the Mediterranean Sea. And so we have become so numb and so used to, because it happens every year. You just fear and you say, I hope this year is not going to be like it was last year. And you hope for the best, that it's going to be less people that die. But unfortunately, people are going to always die. People are going to always flee. And even if it's us and them, but it's everybody's right to seek asylum. We all have a right to go anywhere and ask asylum. As long as these countries are a UN Refugee Convention signatory. So coming to Europe is not illegal, really, because people have the right to seek asylum wherever they want to, but they try to make them look like they are criminals by naming them, especially journalists that assist with this, is, you know, like by calling them illegal immigrants. But nobody really can determine who's legal and illegal until that person asks asylum, and there is a legal due process, and then whether that person gets accepted or rejected. Even if that person gets rejected, it doesn't make that person illegal. But journalists often use, you know, the words illegal migrants entered Austria or Germany or Sweden this much, and they talk about, you know, refugee being flooded all over Europe. In reality, it's not really the truth, and Europe to survive needs manpower. But this is a war against the poor. This is a war against blacks. This is a war against Muslims. It's all about all this. It's not about really asylum, because close to 500,000 people ask asylum every year by coming but via air, and nobody talks about them because these are people that are privileged. They are not poor and desperate people like those that come by boat. So instead of talking about 500,000 people, at least that come in different countries and ask asylum every year. So we talk about the 60,000 or 70,000 a year that cross via the Mediterranean Sea, or those that cross via Greece, Turkey. So my focus became, okay, I cannot fight the big powers like EU and others, and I cannot change their policy. Of course, I do lobby them quite often, but at the same time, I decided, like it's time to punish the traffickers that made me cry. Listening to all this suffering of the people, I am affected as well. It affects me, and some of these traffickers, of course, they threaten me many times because I happen to mention them in my radio, and many smugglers do threaten me. Stop talking about us, but how can you not talk about them if you're, as a journalist, if you are talking to refugees who were just kidnapped? And of course, you are going to ask who kidnapped you or who set you up, and they are going to mention the name, and then I'm the one getting threatened. So it just became too much. I couldn't take it anymore, listening to all the suffering of the people. So I decided to follow and research about the traffickers and the smugglers that put these people in this danger. And I've been doing so, I've been documenting everything since 2008. So I just start following one by one. Where is this person? So I have sources in different places, parts of the world, especially in Africa, where the smugglers and traffickers operate. So I do pay a lot of people that bring lots of information about these people, and I have researchers that do research about this, and also about Eritrean refugees in different parts of the world, of things that happen to them. Because I felt right now, if I get a phone call from a boat in the Mediterranean Sea, it would be dangerous for me to answer that phone call and try to save them, because the new EU law is going after the people that save lives. Um, so you'll get punished, and for every life that you bring into the Italian Sea, for example, so you are punished 10,000 euros per each person, and you can be sent to prison as well. So as a solo woman, I cannot put myself into that danger. So I stopped answering phone calls like that instead. So now my focus is just going after the traffickers and helping authorities in different parts of the world, that whoever wants to go after them, I'll help them, because I've got the information they don't have, and they got the means, and so I do collaborate, and this is what most of my work has been the past 2 years.
Okay, wow. And on Twitter, you said that you paid your researchers the first time with Bitcoin. And usually you do it through Western Union or with the Hawala system. Can you please explain the Hawala system to us?
Sure. The Hawala system is an unofficial way of banking system. Nowadays there are those so-called registered Hawalas, but the Hawala that I'm talking about is it's just a money transfer that's based on trust. So if I'm in Sweden, I want to send money back home to my mother, then I'll contact somebody here. There are those people that receive money. And so you give it to them. If I send 300 euros, then so my mother will get her money in cash within 2 days, maximum 3 days. And so the businessmen that cannot move their money out of Eritrea, Ethiopia, or in most parts of Africa, it's very hard for businessmen to move out their money, especially in hard currency. So for this reason, they want to keep their money abroad, and so they use their family members and friends that they know that are abroad to collect money for them, and they give away cash for us back home. So this is how we've been sending, I don't know, over 40 years, since maybe even longer, since Eritreans started fleeing and other Africans started fleeing, coming to the West. So this is a way that we send our money. And there is another way, is of course like Western Union. We charge you, there's a transfer fee, and on top of it, like you are required to give ID card, and also for the person, the person have to require an ID as well. But it's not only that, but the rate that you get is at a fixed rate that the government fixed. So for example, Eritrea, a few years ago, 100 euro used to be worth close to 8,000 in local currency, and then so the government decided now we're changing money, and they put down the money to 1,500. But in value, it doesn't really buy you much, but it just became like that. So if I send money via Western Union, so my mom is going to get 1,500. If I send via the Hawala system, so she can go get more than what the bank will give you. Sometimes it can even be double if I send to Ethiopia than what the fixed price or what the bank would give you. So for this reason, everybody, of course, prefers to send via the Hawala. There is no guarantee. It's just a matter of trust. And I know people that send $50,000, $60,000 at once via Hawala. We're not talking about only like $200-300. If they accept like as large amount as you want to. And this is how we're talking about billions and billions of money in remittance are also sent this way, not only like the businessmen, but even when we send for different reasons. So these are the means that we've been using, and now you know I learned because the Human Rights Foundation has been giving Bitcoin what do you call, so they've been teaching us about Bitcoin, and so they have had like all kind of workshops for activists to get to know, to learn about Bitcoin, how to receive, how to send, and also like how to receive donations for your organizations and things like that. So I got very interested slowly, and so even though for many years they've been trying to get us interested, and for many years they've been giving us all kind of workshops in person. But now was the time for me to be interested in Bitcoin, and especially I loved it how you can receive and send, and so they taught us about the wallets and which wallets and what kind of wallets. So then I started learning which were the best, you know. So I loved the Blue Wallet and the Moon Wallet Lightning, which were you don't need anything to register. You don't even need an email or anything. So which was amazing how easy it was to receiving Bitcoin. So then I said, as we were learning about this, so my mind always works into different ways, and so I said, yeah, this could be a way to send money back home. Okay, maybe not to Eritrea, because as I said, it's very few people have access to internet, but still, you know, our people are all over Canada, Ethiopia, Sudan, or elsewhere, and so I started training a few of my researchers to learn how to receive the same way I learned, and so now it went well, and since my tweet, it's very exciting. There are so many Ethiopians, Eritreans, so many Africans that are interested, and I've been getting like hundreds of emails. I had to disable my Twitter DMs because it was too much. I couldn't teach one by one to so many people. So I'm actually thinking to do a tutorial on Paxful and the other wallets so that it becomes easy. But it's exciting to see people getting excited in Africa about Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm, cool. And why do you think is it better than the Hawala system?
For many reasons. I mean, first of all, I mean, the value of Bitcoin is, I believe in it. I believe it's something that will hold, and it will always have bigger value than anything, like no matter what people say about other cryptocurrencies. But I'm a strong believer of Bitcoin, and I do believe that's a future. And I want Africans to join the future, because the beauty about Bitcoin is it doesn't discriminate, it doesn't see color, it doesn't see religion. Anybody can have it. It's a digit, and so if everybody learn about Bitcoin, I mean, not only like as a way of transfer, but I want them to invest, and surprisingly, you know, people in Ethiopia are actually buying Bitcoin in black market and at a very high rate. Just because people don't have information like Paxful and things, that's why it became a big deal for them. A lot of people are writing to me because they didn't know how to buy this. They know about Bitcoin, they know about cryptocurrency, but they don't have the access. And sadly, you know, for many of the apps, you know, you have to have a Visa card, which not many people in Africa have access to credit cards or debit cards, which makes it harder for them to trade and buy. And not only that, but at the same time, you know, those apps, they need all kind of identification, which they don't have. For example, in Ethiopia right now, a lot of people are having hard time with Paxful because it used to be just email, but now it's like, you know, you need to have an ID, and so for Ethiopians that means you have to have a passport, and forget that. I mean, not many people own a passport. It's very few people have a passport. Those that are about that travel, those that have money, those that are privileged. The rest of the people don't. So I do really hope that Paxful will change their ways, or others will come in the way that as it was in the beginning was really exciting, because you just could buy without verifying your ID and sell.
I fear that this will not turn back. So I think they will stay that way. I mean, there are other services like Hodl, for instance, or Bisq, where you can buy and sell Bitcoin without an ID. And I hope that in the future that there will be more services like that. But the hope also is that people are going to send Bitcoin with each other, like you did with your researchers, like from person to person. I know it from Zimbabwe. They do it in Telegram or WhatsApp groups. Then they meet up, or then they know each other and they exchange person to person, and then you don't need an ID, because it's also very important, I guess, from the point of view for refugees, because if you flee countries, you also don't have the same currency there where you go than
Exactly.
where you come from. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it makes everything easy. You know, first of all, as I said, you know, with Bitcoin and comparing to the fixed rate, as I said, the government can change the price. In Africa, it has been done so many times, where the value can just decrease by 80% in one day, just because your president wanted it to be like that, and nobody's going to do anything. So in value, nobody wants to hold in local currency because it's not trusted, because the government and their policy is not trusted. So as a means of saving and as a means of just having all your money in Bitcoin is much safer for everybody, and a lot of people are now realizing. So, like for countries like Uganda, I do send Bitcoin there, and it's very easy. It's not that hard, and the people, you know, we can buy Bitcoin by just via mobile payments, or in person in cash, just over WhatsApp group or anything. So people are used to it, but for Ethiopians and other parts of Africa, as I said, it's stricter and it's harder. It's going to be a bit hard to reach, but as long as people are understanding now the value of it, and I think everybody's going to invest whichever way. People always find a way, and so now refugees are learning about this. So for us, it's easier to send them, as you said, via Bitcoin, just like the Venezuelan refugees, you know, who have played a big role in receiving and any kind of donations from family members or any donations from outside via Bitcoin, and which is exciting. So if they can do it, of course, our people are going to be able to do it as well. And so I'm here. I'm going to continue for those that are inspired and that want to work on Bitcoin for Africans, especially Eritreans and Ethiopians. I'll keep helping them, and I'll do some tutorial videos for them in order to understand the value of it and start investing in Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And I mean, you live in Sweden. I guess also in Sweden, there will be a lot of news at the moment around the topic of the energy consumption of Bitcoin. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, there's all kind of controversy, but I've also read at the same time that it's like whatever they are claiming, it's not as much emission as well. So I've seen some studies yesterday. I was reading about it, and it's not that they are claiming just because they say so. You know, they will have to prove it, I guess. And nowadays, you know, how many people are mining? To be honest, it's not that much. So.
Yeah, I mean, it uses a lot of electricity, that is true, but it needs it to secure the value of the network so nobody can hack it. But the question is, I mean, for me, the point is, if I compare it with the positive effects that Bitcoin can have in humanitarian improvements for the people, I say, okay, then, yeah, we need this electricity, but still we can do so much that's positive that outweighs all the negative externalities. And I also think that they are over exaggerated, you know, because The euro, the US dollar, the petrodollar all use energy and have bad emissions. So, yeah.
Exactly. So it's just hypocritical for anybody that questions that, because there are so many other things that we do on a daily basis because it's necessity. We use electricity for so many reasons, and we cannot stop it because we know it's being consumed like a lot of electricity. But as you said, you look at the necessity of it and what outweighs what's important, and then what's not. Of course, the environment is very important. I'm not saying it's not, but at the same time, money is important as well. Without it, we cannot survive. And the same thing, we're talking about Bitcoin. It's the future money, and so. Yeah, there's always going to be a controversy, regardless. Like when you make money on Bitcoin, people always will criticize you. When you don't make money on Bitcoin, people criticize you. If it goes up, people say something. If it goes down, so I've learned to just ignore what all those negative, toxic people. I believe in it, and I'm enjoying. I'm happy. I learned about Bitcoin, and yeah, so I'm going to continue with this.
And it makes your work easier. And you would say, yeah, and you would say maybe that even when more humanitarian organizations would use it, then it would make their lives easier too.
Yeah, and actually, surprisingly, a lot of organizations that I know, a lot of activists do use Bitcoin as a method of receiving payments, especially those that are in the third world, because often the governments do not allow them to have any kind of donations from outside. They would label them and call them spies of the West or something. So it's very difficult. So to be discreet, a lot of activists I know and organizations are discreetly receiving money in Bitcoin, donations in Bitcoin, and there is no way to trace it. And even if one person happened to be arrested, so there are only 3 people that have access to the code, so they can never have it. And we as activists know that. And also, like as activists that are fighting dictatorship, it's also Bitcoin can be a tool to fight the dictatorship. So that's the way I look at it. One is to help the people on the ground as a way of transferring method, and secondly is as investment, and thirdly is to even topple dictatorship, because if for example in Eritrea, I mean, over 36% of the population survives because of remittance that we send, and who controls the banking is the government, who controls the hawala is the government. So the people that give money out in Eritrea are actually part of the government because they need our hard currency. So if we're Eritreans and other Africans, whoever is that's fighting dictatorship, if they start sending things just via Bitcoin, that means you took away the power of that government. Because without money, they're nothing. So for me, I look at it as a tool for so many things. When you're an activist, you can use Bitcoin for so many things, great things, and so I'm thankful that it exists, and I hope more people learn.
Mm-hmm. A very important point, what you just said about how to take down dictatorships, yeah, just to like dry them out, like give them no more money, yeah,
mm-hmm. Exactly.
Opt out of the system, yeah, and use Bitcoin, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Great. So how are you going to use Bitcoin in the future? You said something about collecting donations. Is there anything, I mean, what can the audience do? Do you already take donations? How can we support you and your work?
Yeah, yeah. Anybody can that wants right now. I mean, I haven't set up an organization that receives donations. I'm just a private person, as I say. But anybody who wants to help can always reach out. I'm always active on Twitter. My email is there. Anybody can email me or write me on Twitter and get in touch. And if people have more ideas on how me as an activist can use more tools that could help my activism, so reach out. There's all kinds of things that you can do. It's not only donations. People can share ideas, and that's very helpful as well.
And do you need help in setting up a donation website? Because I guess I have many listeners who can do this technically.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have a website. As I said, like I'm a solo woman doing so many things. So it's amazing after all these years I still don't have a website, but yeah.
Yeah, that's
what
true.
Can
but
you do?
maybe we talk afterwards. Maybe I can help you with a small website if you like. And I'm sure we can find somebody who sets up a BTC Pay server for you so that you can receive Bitcoin into your, what did you say, Blue Wallet or into the Moon Wallet? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, cool. Yeah, as cool as it can be with this serious topic. Okay, yeah. Anything you want to tell the audience? I will put the links to your Twitter and yes, and maybe also the 2 stories you shared with me yesterday. I will put that in the show notes. Right. And anything that you want to say to our listeners?
Stay engaged. People, often, when we have an interest, you can be interested in Bitcoin, and you still can be interested in human rights as well. So use whatever is your specialty into something good, and that nowadays, anybody can whatever work you do, you can always connect it to human rights, and that's what I want to advise your listeners. And I thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you, Anita.
Thank you very much, Meron. And I'll get in contact with you about the interview and also the website we're doing together.
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay, super. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining the Anita Posch Show today to learn more about Bitcoin. You can find the show notes for this conversation on anita.link/show. If you want to get the best stories in Bitcoin from my point of view in your mailbox, go to anita.link/weekly and subscribe. And if you have a question or just want to send me some feedback, drop me a line at hello@anitaposch.com. See you next week when it's time for the Anita Posch Show. Music, start with yes, delicate beats. Content, idea and production, Anita Posch.